We'll go next to the members of the Handgun Permit Review Board, beginning with Senator Riley's constituent, Jacques Cowan.
Good evening. Good. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jacques is uniquely qualified for this position. He was with the BATF, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms. Currently serving as a Montgomery County police officer, a detective. He is in mourning. He's a Wahoo, and they didn't do so well yesterday, so I strongly recommend his appointment to this board.
Terrific. Mr. Cowan.
I'd like to thank the governor for the nomination, and thank you for the ability to serve the state of Maryland.
Terrific. Okay, I'm seeing no questions for you. So we'll go next to Senator Feldman's constituent, Richard Lee Dragana, also named to the remainder of a 3-year term on the handgun permit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've known Dick for many years. Montgomery County, great guy. Has been serving on this very board since May, and I would highly recommend him, Mr. Chairman. Dick.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the appointment by Governor Hogan, and I have been serving since May, and I look forward to finishing out the term.
Great. Thank you so much for your testimony. We very much appreciate it. We'll go now to number 12. That's Senator Nathan Pulliam's constituent, Patricia West.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, and members. I'm here to present Patricia S. West for appointment to the Handgun Permit Review Board. She's currently appointed to the board, filling the vacant slot since 2015, and has experience with gun regulation within COMAR. She is a Maryland State Police qualified handgun instructor and NRA training counselor. She is the owner of B&S Personal Safety Firearms Education, LLC. She's my constituent in Baltimore County, in the 44th District, and I ask you for favorable confirmation.
Senator, thank you very much. Ms. West.
I'd like to say thank you for Governor Hogan for appointing me to this board. It is a sensitive subject, but I like to be fair with everyone who does come to the board.
Terrific. I'm seeing no questions. So I'm calling up, we have someone who's signed in to say a word on this, Michael Brajdzewski. Mike, please come forward if you would, if you've got a remark you want to share with us.
My name is Michael Brzezinski. I'd like to thank the committee for having me here today. And I'd just like to offer my support from B&S, because I'm also one of the instructors there, and also from the Maryland State Rifle and Pistol Association and the Monumental Rifle and Pistol Club, of which Ms. West is also a club instructor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go next to Senator Gladden's constituent, Courtney White. Senator Gladden is not with us tonight, but sends her regards. And Ms. White, please.
Hi, good evening. Mr. Chairman and the Senate committee, I'd like to thank Governor Hogan for my appointment and Senator Gladden for her support of my confirmation on the Handgun Permit Review Board. My name is Courtney White, and I am a general partner with the IOTA Group, which is a parent company of IOTA Security and Detective Agency and IOTA Firearms and Security Training. I am also a Maryland State Police handgun instructor, as well as an NRA instructor, and also a non-lethal instructor for public safety. As Ms. West indicated, I too am a fair person and am willing to support anyone who is qualified to apply for their handgun permit to carry in Maryland, and if they are qualified, then I will do every effort to support their application process. And I thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Senator McFadden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. White, how long have you been on the board?
Since May 2015.
Oh, are you familiar with Chuck Thomas?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, he left the board, I understand.
He did.
Yeah, and one of his concerns was the shift in the thinking of the board. Have you found that to be more towards people getting handguns a bit easier than?
I would say that the board does its best in making every effort to abide by the laws in Maryland. I know that I do.
Oh, I know.
And right now, we are a may carry state, not a shall carry state. And it is a very sensitive subject.
Yes, it is.
Okay. And again, the best that we can do is only look at whatever application is presented to us.
And when the
And-
state police indicate that this person should not carry firearms,
Forgive me, I'm so sorry.
and I've just heard instances where the state police would say individual X should not possess a handgun.
Okay. And so then that individual ex-applicant would then appeal the decision of the Maryland State Police and present their case or any other evidence to the board, and then we would have to evaluate that.
Right.
Yes. So,
Interesting. I'm going to follow this for the next couple of years. 'Cause,
okay. Please.
yeah, I will. But it's not for you. I'm just going to follow this one.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Senator Merlino.
So are you trying to say to us that there's been a shift in the thinking of the board from one of giving deference to the state police to now not doing that?
No, not at all. I'm saying that former Chairman Thomas had expressed that. I'm saying that what the board is doing is trying to do every effort that they can to give this applicant an ulterior or an alternate opportunity to resubmit their information and support. Sometimes applicants don't necessarily write all the information that they should on the application, and therefore it may not pass. That applicant has every opportunity to appeal it and also present additional information that they should have submitted in the first place. And it's that information that we evaluate.
So, and I'm not familiar with what the statute says particularly about appeals from a state police denial. But you're saying you guys treat it as a de novo appeal. You're starting from scratch essentially with the application. Is that right?
We give the applicant another opportunity to present more information, which the Maryland State Police does also.
Gotcha.
Yes.
But so, in other words, it's not like treating it as an appeal from an administrative record before an agency to see whether there was simply substantial evidence for the state police's judgment. You're starting over essentially. Is there anything else you want to tell us?
Yes.
Is there more facts and more information that we should see?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, cool. I did not realize the statute was shaped that way.
Oh, yes. Well, yes, it gives everyone the opportunity to appeal. Yes, the decision. And even those people who really don't have the right to carry, they still have the right to appeal. And it is our responsibility to listen to whatever it is that they have to present to us.
Right. Yes, Senator McFadden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All I'm saying to you colleagues is, if you're concerned about the direction of the State Board of Education and some of these other boards, you better look very carefully at this board, because this thing is moving in a direction that's going to raise some concerns. Like, not this young lady. I'm talking about the whole board.
All right. Are there any other questions we've got? And anything else you want to say to us?
I do. I really would like to say that, like I said, I am a firearms instructor, and I am someone who helps assist those people who have applied for their handgun permit. And when people come to us for assistance with applying for a handgun permit in Maryland, I am also a non-resident instructor for those people who can carry a permit or qualify for a permit outside of the state of Maryland. And equal to that, but especially in Maryland, I just want to say that we're not that type of organization that will say, sure, come on in, we're going to give you a process and help you fill out your paperwork. We usually, mostly, and especially, will interview them before they even come across our door. We don't want to waste anyone's time. We don't want to waste anyone's money to take this class. But if they go ahead and pass our inquiry as to whether or not they truly have the reason to apply, a good and substantial reason, then and only then will they come through our door. And it is then that we believe that they have at least a 90 to 98% chance of applying and qualifying appropriately.
Can I just follow up on that point? You're there speaking about your work with IOTA.
Correct.
Is that right? So if I'm interested in getting a handgun, I would come to you for training. Is that right?
That is
and
true.
And you would also coach me on my application and how to shape my application in the right way. Is that right? Or?
Well, no, what I'm saying is those people who have the good reason to apply,
Yeah.
then what we can do, yes, we will assist with the facilitation. That would be on-site live scan fingerprinting. We have computer systems there for them to complete, because there's a lot of people who may not have a computer at home. There's a limitation with the Maryland State Police website in that it doesn't support, I'm sorry, I'm a Windows person, but Apple. And so they would need support in how to fill out the application, what information they need to support the application, to prove that they have a business or a good and substantial reason, any supportive documentation to go along with the state police application.
Yeah. So what do you do in your new position if someone is turned down by the state police and it's a person who had been a client of yours?
I would recuse myself.
And have you had to recuse yourself since you joined the board?
One time.
One time, okay. So, and you recuse yourself for just people you personally trained or anybody who was a client of IOTA?
Anyone who would come, I would know everybody that comes in IOTA. So.
Oh, I see. It's
Yes.
a small.
It's very small. It's a mom and pop. Yes.
Okay. So if they come into IOTA, even if you're not the person who directly does the training, you recuse yourself if their case comes before the board?
Yes, because not only am I an instructor, but I handle the majority of the administrative end, so everyone has to pass through me. We do have multiple instructors, and safety is paramount. In fact, we have two firemen, former police or retired police officers that also train in our organization. So, yes, safety is key.
Okay. All right. I'm seeing no other questions. Thank you so much for your appearance today.
You're welcome.
Very much
Thank you.
appreciate it. Okay, we'll go now to Senator Hershey's constituent, Robert D.H. Wilson, who's the final appointee to the Handgun Permit Review Board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's my pleasure to introduce Bob Wilson for appointment to the Handgun Permit Review Board. Bob is a good friend of mine. He is currently the general manager at Mears Point Marina in Kent Narrows, and he's been extremely active in our community. Prior to that, Bob is a former firefighter from Anne Arundel County and retired staff sergeant from the Maryland Army National Guard. I highly recommend Bob for appointment to the Handgun Review Board.
I thank the governor for his appointment, and I look forward to your support and my approval of my nomination. I've been on the board since May of last year, and after Chairman Thomas resigned in November this year, I've been the chairman since November 17th. If there's any questions I can ask or answer on the board, I know you had quite a few from Ms. White.
Yes, Senator McFadden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, Mr. Wilson.
Yes, sir.
About you, sir. So the board is the community. Are you a member of the NRA as well?
Yes, sir, I am.
Your position on individuals who come before you to get a permit to carry a handgun, can you give me some idea of how you feel about that?
Yes, sir, and even to address a little bit of your prior question about the change in direction of the board. When I got on the board in May of last year, the board was in complete violation of the Open Meetings Act. And the Chairman Thomas, we had our first 2 meetings at the Glen Burnie State Police Barracks, and it was absolutely a horror scene. People were chased out of the room. The meetings were conducted in private. There was no organization to it. It was very frustrating. And the third board meeting at the Maryland State Police Barracks, they wouldn't let us in. Then we're under the Department of Public Safety, and the Department of Public Safety then moved us to a location on Reisterstown Road, which is the Corrections Interview Center. Since that time, many of the new board members worked very hard to get the board in compliance with the OMA. I've taken the training course myself. In looking at the law, trying to review COMAR, understand the application of the law for handgun permits, we found a lot of conflict in the law. First, in the board meetings, there's a conflict in law that the OMA wants to have everything in the public domain, yet there is also law that states when someone has a handgun permit that their information has to remain private. And so there's a little conflict when you have someone and you're having a public meeting, and now you're going to approve them for a permit, but it's been held in public. But because a permit has not been issued, it has to be held in public. If we have someone that has an existing permit requesting a modification, then we have to have it in closed session, but they can waive that right and have it in public session. We have, in reviewing COMAR, and as each applicant is reviewed individually, we look through all their background information that they've provided, and the applicant can also provide new evidence at the time of these hearings. The difficulty in that is that in our rules and responsibilities as given to us by the Department of Public Safety, it states that the burden of proof is on the Maryland State Police. It states that the applicant has up to the time and during that hearing to submit any new evidence. So we have people that come before us, and when we got on the board, we weren't having hearings, we were having reviews. And a review consisted of, we would have a letter from the Maryland State Police saying why a person was rejected. We have a letter from the applicant saying why they wanted to appeal it, but they could not discuss with us. There was no Maryland State trooper there to ask a question of. Everybody was chased out of the room, and we voted on it. After becoming chairman, I was very in conflict with the way things had been conducted, and I finally had a meeting with Colonel Palazzi and Steve Moyer, the secretary of the DPS, and expressed my frustration with the way the conduct of the board had been. We had one gentleman from the DPS that was assigned the board, but for the entire time until last December meeting, we never had any legal counsel. We finally had an Assistant Attorney General, Ben Legum, assigned to us in the second week of December. At that time, Secretary Moyer made him very aware we had a real problem with the administrative assistant. This person came on the board same time as new board members. Everything that had been done prior had all been done on paper. Nothing was done electronically. We worked very hard to try to get caught up with all that, but the administrative assistant was very difficult to get things accomplished. There were records that were lost. There was voice recordings that were not made. There were voice recordings that were made on her iPhone. After complaining to Secretary Moyer, he instructed Ms. Rhea Harris, Assistant Secretary, to attend every meeting. And since that time, Ms. Rhea Harris has been our administrative assistant. And she's the #2 person in the Department of Public Safety. Right. We have worked very hard to get it where we have now gotten all our decisions letter. Everything is a hearing. We have legal advice. I think it's going very well right now, but at this time, we still are lacking in an administrative assistant to make things happen in the proper time frames. It's required by statute that the applicant has to be notified at least 10 days in advance. The last month, they've been notified 3 and 4 days in advance, and most of them are counseling. So the last 2 board meetings, we've only had 1 hearing. I could go on. We're just not doing it. We as a board, We are completely caught up with getting our decisions letter done. Everything is in the hands of the DPS. It's been reviewed by the AAG. But people have just now, in the last week, started to get their letters. And the letters are supposed to, these written decisions are supposed to be provided to the applicants within 30 days. So I know you say we're going in a different direction, but I feel very strongly we're doing a different direction, that we're complying with the law. We're making ourselves known. We've talked to the superintendent of the state police, the secretary of the DPS, trying to get this straight. And I think Ms. Rhea Harris is absolutely wonderful in helping us, but she's an assistant secretary to DPS. This is not her job, and we still do not have a administrative assistant to really make all these requirements happen in the proper time frame. I hope that was a full encompassing answer for you.
No,
sir.
thank you for that comprehensive answer. Can I just follow up on a couple of things? One is was the prior witness correct that it's a de novo appeal from state police rejection of a permit? In other words, you're not just doing like a substantial evidence review.
Well, we have to, sir, because again, the way the DPS has the regulations written, and you see it on their website, we have to take any new evidence and review that, and the state police have not had the ability to see that. Furthermore, we've just now voted as a board that we want the state police to see that evidence before it comes to our board. If I tried to break it down into some very quick situations, we have a fair amount of people that have applied for a handgun permit. They're a prohibited person, and they have the right to appeal, as Ms. White stated, and they make the appeal, and we have to give them that hearing as any other person. We have a lot of law enforcement officers that the Maryland State Police, some time back under Colonel Brown, had made a decision that no police officer would have a handgun permit issued if they applied more than a year after their retirement, or they could go the Leosa route. We have several police officers, past correctional officers, that have been denied by the state police, and these are men and women that have left in good standing in their law enforcement career. They have made many felony arrests, and the oddity that I find the most myself as a person who has an honorable discharge, I am exempt from any training requirements, yet a police officer either has to go to Leosa and do it every year or do the same system as the rest of us citizens. But it's not taken into account that they were a law enforcement officer in good standing if they applied more than a year later. I would like to give one more very extreme example. The first night of my being the chairman, we had a colonel in Fort Detrick who's in charge of all your anthrax biological weapons. And he was denied a handgun permit by the state police based on the fact he had no documented police reports of threats and lacked any good and substantial. This man is the protector of all our biological weapons. If nothing else, people want to just grab this guy off the street for what he has between his ears. And in all his testimony that he gave a very damning review from a command staff level of how his application was considered by the state police. And we found that he more than had ample reason for having a handgun permit to protect himself. And he had good and substantial. He met every level. And this is the level of people that get rejected by the state police. And I'm not condemning them as an agency. It's within that licensing division. But it's one of the things that we're seeing more and more is that people that really do have a good and substantial, meeting your current laws with Snowden and Insurer, they meet that application, but they've been denied, like the law enforcement officers.
Do you know whether you've rejected anyone who's not disqualified from carrying a handgun?
No, we've overturned everyone that was a prohibited person, whether it be for a mental condition, background. A lot of times people, when we say that we get new evidence, a lot of these times the people have out-of-state felonies, and the Maryland State Police or the board has to try to figure out how to convert that to a Maryland law penalty to see if it complies with being a prohibited person. Out-of-state charges on marijuana, misdemeanor possession in some out-of-state, conflict of law maybe with what we have here in the state of Maryland.
Yes, Senator Bertrand.
I'm sorry, did you say that you're overturning people who have out-of-state felonies and allowing them to have handguns?
No, sir, we're denying their application. We're sustaining the Maryland State Police.
Okay, are you doing that?
Any prohibited person, we have sustained the Maryland State Police.
Thank you.
All right, are there any further questions? Senator McFadden.
But you guys are looking at the decisions made by the Maryland State Police with regard to who can carry a handgun.
Yes, sir.
And in many instances, you're overturning the decision of the Maryland State Police.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
But not many, sir. The ratio of what you're saying, we're not a rubber stamp to overturn the state police. I think we take this extremely seriously. But in the cases like the colonel from the military, a retired CIA agent, retired law enforcement officers, we have overturned the Maryland State Police opinion.
But the Maryland State Police, I think, had a valid reason in denying that person a permit.
Standing here, sir, I would disagree with you on that statement. And that's why we overturned the state police, and that's our job.
So we're not going to be able to litigate each of these cases, obviously,
No, sir.
here. But just to follow up for one point, was it sufficient in that case simply what his professional role was without him providing any additional reason as to why he needed a firearm? I mean, in other words, you viewed him as somebody who knew firearms and knew how to deal with them safely, right?
Documented threats from PETA because he goes out and kills monkeys with anthrax. He had the Office of Personnel Management, the federal government. He had the breach of information where all his personal information is out in the public domain. They have the documentation of the ISIS threats. One of the confusing things for us in this board, not to get sidetracked, but MCAC tells the state police tells us there is no credible threats of terrorism in the state of Maryland, whether against military or our civilian intelligence. We have concerns when somebody who has had the OPM breach, they work in a top secret or compartmentalized top secret positions within our intelligence agencies in this state. The breach of information and the ISIS threat are something that we take into consideration.
Okay. All right. Senator McFadden for a final question. Yeah.
Colleagues, if you just listen, and I didn't want to start in on the other members, the trend is really shifting hard right on this commission. And the word on the street is if you need a gun and you've been turned down, you notice the lady before him, right? She was talking about how she helps people and knows them. It's that kind of a thing that, and I just didn't, well, I'm just going to have to watch this thing for a while. It raises some concerns in my regard, and when these names come up, every last one of them.
Okay. Thank you, Senator. Senator Middleton.
Just a quick question. I want to make sure I heard you properly. You hear cases where additional information has been given that the state police don't have purview, and you want to change things now. You're asking that they look at this information, and if they want to comment because they provided further information, then they may change their recommendations. So right now, you're reviewing information that the state police haven't seen.
Correct. And in those cases, recently the state police, literally the day of the hearing in the last couple of months, have reviewed their opinions as new evidence was presented to them and issued a handgun permit, and we did not have to take any further action.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Wilson, thank you very much for your testimony.
Yes, sir.
We really appreciate your willingness to serve. We're going to go now to number